Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome back. If you have, my intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. This particular video is going to just address some of the things that I've been shown energetically about our reality and talking about a little bit of the crunchiness, the wonkiness, the scientific wording to describe what many of us are feeling or have been feeling. So the first thing I want to start off with is the words that have been coming through for me in my reality, in conversation, in session, in interacting with my fellow humans and fellow starseeds, is that things feel unstable. There's a sense of lack of direction for many people. There's a sense of lack of clarity for many people. I'm coming back to not just sustainability, sustainability, right? The ability to sustain one's own self. And this idea that many of our foundations are no longer supporting us. And we don't feel supported oftentimes by other things in our lives that maybe at one time did feel supportive or we felt supported by. And so we are being really called to stabilize our own frequency and to give ourselves the support that we need in order to sustain our frequency in such a way that we can feel balanced. And again, I'm coming back to the word stable. So those are all the words that have been kind of coming up in the writing that I've been doing and in the sessions that I've been having. And I said this before in a previous video, but one of the movies that's out is Everything Here Now All at Once. And somebody just told me the other day that, well, let me come back to that in just a moment because I see everything in bubbles. And I have a lot of synchronicities around the baseball game. So we'll come to that in just a moment. I follow a lot of my life in the way of, let me rephrase that. I see and feel into and follow the breadcrumbs of synchronicity. That's been something that's led me through and to my life, who I meet, who I talk with, the conversations that I have, the experiences that I have. I pay attention and I ask for magic every day. And I do receive magic every day. But what I was shown recently is my expectations about what magic is needed to be adjusted because I was expecting magic to show up for me the same way that it used to show up for me in the 3D world. And the message that my guidance team, AKA my higher self, AKA my connection to a higher frequency that we all have access to, source energy, essentially showed me that we're no longer playing the same game on the same field. We are not in the same dimension anymore. Many of us have heard about this shift from 3D to 4D to 5D. And I've talked about this a lot in my previous videos, but for this video, without going into what dimensions are and what densities are, because I'm not necessarily the best person to explain all of that, I'm merely going to show you what things look like from my perspective. And essentially what I've been shown is that we're just not in the same dimension. So how can we feel stable, I was gonna say sustainable, and supported when we're not even playing the same game or even on the same playing field that we once were familiar with? There are many people who are searching for a sense of familiarity, a sense of understanding their reality, but they're comparing it to a reality that no longer exists. And I know that's a little bit confusing, but let me go back to where this conversation started and what I had been shown. A couple of very dear friends and sisters of mine had mentioned how wonky everything was feeling, and they were getting a lot of synchronicities and continual people who were saying, what's going on? What's happening in our reality? Why do I feel this way? Why am I so off balance? Why can't I see clearly? I'm not getting clarity around this. I feel lost. I feel anxious. I feel depressed. I feel really sad. I feel high and low. And what I was shown, and then my friend proceeded to say that she'd felt like the carpet had been pulled out from underneath her. And I recognized that it has. So rolling with that, rolling out the carpet's been pulled out from underneath us, all of us. There is no carpet. Many of us had been used to walking in a certain pattern. We felt the texture of the carpet underneath us. We knew that it was on top of some foundation. We recognized that we had some sense of stability. That carpet, which we will call 3D, was firm and strong underneath our feet because we believed in it. We had habits. We knew where we were going, or we had adjusted according to 3D. And I'm using that as a point. From my perspective, 3D is here, 3D, 4D, 5D, it's all here now, all at once. But we've been bridging over into these other dimensions, and we're consistently, from what I see, always bridging, cross-hatching, all these dimensions interweaving. And what we do in this dimension has a ripple effect in all other dimensions, because all those higher dimensions, we could say, maybe from one perspective, if we're looking at a linearity perspective, the future versions of us. So oftentimes I feel that the information I'm receiving comes from the future version of me now, since everything is here now all at once. So without getting too far ahead of myself in the future, recognizing that everything is different. Everything's been different since 2012. Everything's been different since 2021, 2020, right? And also recognizing that now that that carpet is gone, the foundation is no longer there. Instead of being a solid foundation, what I was shown is bubbles, plasma, energy, frequency. And so we're creating these lines of energy. And instead of having some solid foundation, which never was really solid, it was only solid because we believed in it. We were taught from birth, this is our reality. This is our history. This is what things look like. So many of us were feeling, we based who we were on that knowingness. But now we know more, right? Our social, economic, political, geological, everything is changing and shifting underneath our feet. And so things that we felt connected to, or that gave us a sense of familiarity, are no longer there. They're no longer stable. From a very multidimensional perspective, it's because they don't exist anymore. They don't have the same chart. And so now the foundation is no longer there. What I've been shown is, it's like we're weaving as we go. So the more of a thought that we have, that's, let's say we have a continuous thought, that's creating this energy, this bridge, and this connection point that we essentially then are walking. I'm hearing the song Walking on the Moon. I've been hearing that for a while. Giant steps. Okay, anyways, I'm not going to try to sing, but what I was shown is this. The carpet's been pulled out from underneath us. There's the old 3D carpet, and there's our new bubble. Oh, there we go. Got my blurry background in there. So there's our new carpet. There is none. It's just bubbles. Lots of plasma, lots of bubbles, and we're co-creating in every moment with every interaction that we have. And so it's difficult to see in some situations with clarity, because those bubbles are all, I'm not going to get into the whole idea of nodes and networks and crystal lattice work, which I'd love to do in another video, because that was a really fascinating conversation. But I will say briefly, what I was shown is that we have these nodes of potentials in our field. And so the more we tune into these potentials, or the more energy and attention that we give a particular subject, the stronger that pull, magnetism, electricity becomes. And there's so many different layers we could go into with that, but let's just stick with the dimensions first. So what I was shown is, and we're just going to use 3D, 4D as a good, easy description, even though it may not be definitive. This is meant to be expansive and just play with this. So now we're in bubble plasma carpet, and the solid foundation doesn't exist anymore. And so we're learning how to walk differently. We're learning how to engage with so think about how we walk. If we're on a stable foundation versus if we're walking in on a trampoline, right? Or if we're walking in a bouncy house, right? So if you've never been in a bouncy house, they're a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. But so we're learning how to walk. You have to make an adjustment. So we're kind of all in this, and I've been talking about this for a while, but we're kind of all in this adjustment. And I had somebody ask me, and I'm going to use the carpet as an example. This is not how they worded it, but essentially, well, how is it that some people seem to be just doing fine? Well, in some cases they are, because that's just who they are. In other cases, the carpet's been pulled out from underneath them and they're in denial. They are acting as if everything is fine. Everything is as it was. They're just going about life and pretending that everything is normal. And in their own little bubble of reality, it might feel that way. But because I've been seeing more and more people coming out of the woodwork, starting to ask me questions that I never thought I would be asked, I'm recognizing that that's not true. They are oftentimes still feeling it. They may not just be feeling it as much as somebody who's sensitive to it is, but essentially everybody from one perspective is feeling it to a certain degree. It might be that that person's just having a different thought about reality. What happens when I die? You know, I wonder is it possible that they might be interested in a subject that they've never even given a second thought. They might be all of a sudden wake up one day and say, I want a different relationship and I don't know why. I feel like something's missing. It could be all kinds of things. It might be a job. It might be they decide to retire early, on and on and on. So everybody's affected by it in some way. It just may not be as obvious to some versus others. For those that it's super obvious to, especially those of us that are really sensitive to it, it can feel extremely high and low. It can feel like we cannot find our footing. We're not getting clarity. And the reason, from my perspective, is we're creating, again, from a completely different dimension. So if we're in a different dimension, or let's say we skipped timelines and now we're on a different timeline, we can play with that, then how we are creating doesn't hold the same charge, because let's say we're comparing 3D to 4D. And again, this is not my area of expertise to describe dimensions, but let's pretend for a moment it is. From my perspective, I am not who I was in 3D, because I'm no longer in 3D. Now I'm in the fourth dimension. Therefore, that dimension is a certain frequency and vibration. So the plasma, the waves, the particles, but the waves and the electricity that I'm interacting with are different than they were. Therefore, I am different because I am part of that environment. So I am part of this new world, whether I realize it or not. Therefore, the world or the environment is responding to me because it's a living fluid. This air is plasma, ether, whatever. It's a living, breathing, from one perspective, energy, because we are encased in it. Therefore, if this is the dimension, which is a field, this field is going to hold a different consistency that is no longer consistent with the old field. Therefore, everything is different. And so we start to see everything just slightly different than we did before. That one thing in itself can throw us off. We can feel like I'm not seeing things the same way because our eyes are changing. Our body is adapting, just like an astronaut, or let's say we're scuba diving, we're adapting to our environment. We're adapting to the frequency, to charge, this deeper depth. And we're figuring out from one perspective how to become one with it. We already are one with it, but we feel like we're not sure how to swim in these new etheric waters, for example. So I just wanted to bring that up because essentially everything is going to feel different. So how we walk on this new foundation that is no longer carpet or an area rug, this new area is going to have an effect on everything. And so being really patient with ourselves, as always, coming from a place of compassion. And a lot of it is based on trust. It's trusting that when we step forward, we are going to be supported. And ultimately, we are being supported by the earth. And she is our foundation, because this version of earth in this other dimension is what we are, is our home base. Someone told me that they're going to expand the bases on the baseball game. They're going to make them bigger so that you can have more stolen bases. It's going to make the game more exciting. And essentially, that just put me into a complete spin. I'm like, well, of course, the diamond, the baseball diamond, the home base, the way the scores are done, everything's going to change. This very traditional game is now going to be bigger, more exciting, more fun, and we'll have more opportunity. And I always see baseball as that's our foundation. Who we are has expanded. Our earth is expanding. Our dimensional existence is expanding. The universe is expanding. So we are expanding out to meet it, and it is reaching out its threads of energy, taking us with it. It's not like it's getting out of our reach. We're just reaching out to greet it and to move with it. If we can be fluid and let go of our resistance and allow ourselves to feel the inner stability, inner standability, right? Go within, feel into our own inner fluidity that allows us to increase our charge, to increase our, again, sustainability, to increase the wave and the way that we interact in this new fluid-like reality. Once we feel into our expansiveness and we can feel somewhat relaxed in that, it no longer feels quite as rocky or unstable as it once did. I'm saying that as if that's going to be the case. That doesn't mean that's what it's going to be in every given moment. So from moment to moment, we are continuously making these adjustments because we are continuously adapting to this new frequency. And it, in return, is adapting to us because we are co-creating this reality in this dimension. So I just wanted to kind of share from that perspective. And that's a whole other video, because then we're talking about being co-creative beings. We're talking about what I was shown essentially is we had that solid foundation that was kind of created for us. We believed in it, therefore it became more dense and strong and more compacted. And now it's like poof, we still have the remnants from that reality. It's not completely gone. There's still lingering components that are essential for the mathematical composition of the new reality structure that we are in the process of composing. And as we compose together in this new quantum field variance, we are creating the variants that create this new reality. So we are creating it through diversification and interweaving exchanges through our own innate, oh, I'm hearing so much, abilities. So essentially, we're weaving an ethereal carpet. We're weaving that in plasma threads. And that is creating the matrix of the domain that we are now sustaining and existing within. And so this is going to take time to adjust to. It's going to take us supporting our own system and also not being afraid to ask for support when we feel completely lost. Because there are going to be moments we don't have that foundation to go back to. We only have remnants of that foundation. We don't necessarily have this old, whatever it is, person, place, or thing that we relied on for stability. Now we are relying on self-reliance. But sometimes self-reliance comes from our ability to ask for help and recognize when we aren't able to sustain ourselves and what do we need in order to make that happen? Can you help me so that I can become more self-sustainable or self-reliant? And I hear we all have that within us, but we're here together to assist in this building, in this new matrix together. So we are still able to utilize each other's spark to continue to spark one another, to continue to weave together these lines of when we have an aha, it's like synapses. So we're creating new synapses in the brain, and as within, so without. So when I have an experience and I share it with you guys, even if only 5 people watch it, that's 5 more synapses that are fired of people that say, oh, this feels this way to me. And then they go out and create this line of energy and thread that they share with someone else, maybe because I said, hey, you're a rainbow. They might go, I didn't know I was a rainbow. And they might go, well, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And all of a sudden these ideas come in, and that gives them the opportunity to thread those beautiful colors out with everyone they meet. We're all rainbows, but you know what I mean. So we're all having that impact, whether we realize it or not. And it doesn't have to be from doing videos. It's just from having a beautiful conversation with someone else. We then create that thread that weaves this magic carpet that we're all creating, that we then provide the foundational, new foundation to this new dimension. And what this does is it creates a new dimension, meaning a new depth, meaning a more expansive depth, meaning we get to play at a completely new level than we've ever played at before, which means it's going to feel weird at first because we're not sure how to interact in this new level, like playing a new game. That's exactly what's happened. So it requires a certain amount of patience. It requires us to use our imagination. It requires us to ask new questions. It requires us to ask questions from a new perspective. It requires us to hold a new perspective and to be open to what our environment has to give back to us and vice versa. So in love and light, guys, I hope this resonated with someone out there watching this, and hang in there. We're all supporting this network together. And therefore, we're coming together in support of this working unification in a unified way, even though it doesn't feel that way. In essence, through this orchestration, when I say orchestra, I'm seeing an orchestra. It's a symphony. And without one another, there is no symphony, there is no orchestra. So there is a sense of oneness behind all of the residue and the lingering chaos that's the leftover remnants of this third dimensional reality that was so important and so was such a beautiful reality in so many ways. And then the next, and then the next, and then the next. So, but all here, right? All here now. So the more we can hold that space of heartfelt coherence as often as possible, even if it's for 5 minutes, every opportunity we get, the more we stabilize those lines of woven tapestry for our new foundation. In love and light, guys. Namaste.